What you're going to see is a merge that includes the best parts from my English course and my Spanish course. Certainly, I had to solve the language barrier. At first, I thought I could dub both versions in order for it to be fluent. But then I thought that it could be a cool idea to translate a few clips with artificial intelligence. And I think it looks cool, actually. So I wanted to make clear that when the clip is translated with AI, it's not an avatar or something like this. For example, this clip belongs to the Spanish course.
No hace falta ser un experto en música comercial actual, pero sí tener en tu cabeza el sonido, al menos un sesgo sonoro de este.
And here is the version translated with AI.
You don't need to be an expert in current commercial music, but you do need to have the sound in your head, at least the sonic bias of it.
Other clips, the ones spoken in English by me, sound with my regular voice. For example, this one.
If you are a composer or a songwriter, separate the passion from the practical tasks.
With that out of the way, let's start the course.
Hello! Thank you very much for choosing to be part of this training. I formally welcome you, hoping that you learn and be inspired by all the material and ideas I'll show you. What will we develop together? What I intend in this course is for you to immerse yourself in this world in the most solid way possible, whether as a professional or just to investigate and learn. I aim for these videos to be a trigger. It is a mixture of exposing technical knowledge, whether it be harmony, orchestration, rhythm, styles, etc., practical examples for you to see how I work in principle, and for you to either copy my methods or you can think of countless better ways than mine. I want to clarify that this course has a quite acoustic nuance. With this I mean that it is not designed for people who only work with MIDI. If, for example, you dedicate yourself to making beats, loops, or producing house music or things like that, although you will surely be able to take many ideas from this course, the truth is that it is designed more for people who are into world music, so to speak. This would encompass everything from pop songs to folk music, soundtracks, some elements of classical music, world music, jazz, funk, etc. We will see hybrid sessions using both acoustic instruments and MIDI. The other thing I would like to clarify is that we will delve into each subject only to the extent that what I explain is functional to the ideas I want to convey to you. For instance, it is possible to create as many as 10 complete courses solely focused on orchestration, or even a staggering number like 100. The first concept I want to leave you with in this introduction is that even before becoming a professional arranger, you must set your mind around these two instances, creativity and versatility. But not only in music, but as general concepts. To arrange in music, it is necessary to position ourselves from a perspective that extends and surpasses the limits of what is strictly musical. The second thing I want to tell you first and foremost is that our primary goal, our purpose should always be to strive to create what we enjoy with integrity. This applies to all areas of life actually. The result of what we do will always be better and more appreciated by everyone if it is appreciated by us first. Only a few musicians devoted themselves to this professionally, as arrangements and production are essential in the music industry. I mean, we're seeing that tech, it advances rapidly, and that's astonishing. We have elements at our disposal to use freely for more creativity. Utilizing, for instance, in music, improved software, enhanced sound banks, enhanced plugins and similar items, right? Yet it seems to me that the most valuable thing we have and will always have is creativity. I see myself as a creative person with experience, so I believe that offering this course can be enriching even for me. I have learned a lot during the process of creating it, including putting together chapters, preparing material, thinking about teaching strategies, filming, editing, etc. This course targets musicians with a professional background who play one or several instruments professionally and feel unsatisfied with their music arrangement skills or want to pursue arranging music for other musicians, singer-songwriters, composers, etc. It enhances their arrangement abilities and explores music arranging in depth. When to make something sound powerful or subtle, or strong or soft, when to surprise or not, and create a kind of painting, a work of art, where we initially have basic materials, for example a melody that we have to reharmonize, or a passage that we have to orchestrate, a piece as part of a soundtrack that aims to accompany a certain scene and things like that. Work in production from the perspective of arrangements. Later, a chapter will be dedicated to how and where to generate money through producing. I have divided this course into 12 chapters. I wanted them to be dynamic and clear. In them you will find everything I know and how I work, not only for a solid foundation in everything I consider essential, but also for each of them, the chapters, to be a fuse, a shot that inspires you to immerse yourself even more than I do in some topics, that excites you to try things, make mistakes, learn, exceed yourself with every small or big step in this creativity, which is actually the greatest and most wonderful power that musicians and artists, of course, possess. I am Lucas, welcome to the course. Hello once more. Where should I begin? What steps should I take? How do I initiate? Where do I start?
When I was younger, I couldn't even imagine that famous songs could sound different than the way they were. With time, by getting used to the constant exercise of trying to brainstorm what would be the best way for a song to sound, I realized that depicting those famous songs rearranged wasn't as hard. Who says we can't imagine Sweet Child of Mine sound like this?
It is evident that the more music we have listened to, the more styles we have become familiar with and absorbed, the greater our imagination will be. What I do want to tell you in this chapter is that you should not be afraid of working too much. You may think it doesn't make sense to make more than one attempt. This is how one becomes used to generating ideas. It's not extra work, nor a waste of time. The initial step I take is an exercise of imagination in which I endeavor to pre-visualize, or more precisely pre-hear, a specific style of my choosing. From that moment I get about 2 or 3 possibilities or more. It's an immediate moment, that is, I hear the melody once or twice, and without thinking too much, I focus on a sound, an instrumentation, a texture, a style in which I would like to hear that melody. La, 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 la.
The first thing that comes to my mind is some few snares doing some kind of triumphal sort of vibe pattern. Block chords on a piano, more percussion, some strings, brasses, bass, and a bunch of people singing. What about a pop rock version?
Beyond my own criteria to imagine a certain style when starting an arrangement on a melody, a song, or a particular musical piece, it could happen that a client asks you for something very well defined, that they have it very clear in advance and know exactly what they want, or at least know in what precise style they want it. In that case, the best thing to do is to fully immerse yourself in listening to a lot of music of the style you are referring to. Put on Spotify, create a playlist, go for a walk and start chewing it. Try to grasp the very heart of style. Be aware that the first impression we have will be passing through a filter. That is to say, at first we will only have an impression. We will not be making the blood of that style walk through our veins. Our filter is conditioned and subjectivized by the music we have listened to the most in the past. The second most important thing would be to read or watch information or documentaries, not only about musicians from the culture you want to approach rhythmically, but also about people in general, how their language is, how they express themselves with gestures, how they live, what they eat, etc. An alternative, which more than an alternative should be almost a rule, and which also seems wise to me and which I will insist on throughout this course, is to be sincere with oneself and with the person who puts in your hands the desire to hear their music well arranged, executed, recorded, and produced. Being honest doesn't mean you have to apologize for something you don't know. Being honest is that you indicate what do you aspire to with that arrangement. Where are you going to end up in the best case scenario? Speaking of it, maybe you and your client will come to the conclusion that the result could be even better than he expects. But we will talk about these things in more detail in the chapter on how to make money as a professional fixer. In my case, the music styles in which I feel comfortable to a greater or lesser extent are on the one hand many of the folk rhythms of Latin America. Of course, I know Argentine folklore well as tango and national rock. Then I have heard and played and sometimes even recorded Uruguayan candombe, Peruvian lando, Venezuelan joropo, Cuban and Central American rhythms, and of course a lot from Brazil. On the other hand, I am familiar with flamenco, and recently, a couple of years ago, I immersed myself in funk music, pop, and what you could call modern commercial music. I also have incorporated music that we have all heard, at least people of my age, like reggae and everything that was danced in the 80s. I feel comfortable with classical music and also with film music. And finally, although I'm still a beginner, a couple of years ago, I also started delving into the jazz repertoire. Anyway, and here's my first advice. Every time I have to face a fix in any of those styles, which supposedly I already know, the first thing I do is go listen to what is being done right now. What are the musicians doing today at such and such a dress? Probably, and this is a general trend, not only now but for years, we find in a particular style many elements from other styles. Everyone, especially professional musicians, start from an already mixed space in our heads. And in my opinion, that is great. It is the bias of our time. And as Paco de Lucia once said, when asked about the criticism he received from purist flamenco experts, purity is within oneself. Everything one does with sincerity is already pure. Something that underlies that interview, and it is up to us to assume it and take it for granted, is that it was said by someone who certainly had well chewed the veins of a well-defined tradition. That is to say, and this is a strictly personal opinion, the positive bias of the present is very rich, but with a clarification. As long as mixtures and fusions of cultures with well-defined roots in the past are being woven, I was referring to that bias, not to whatever is just stated, because if not more, strictly born in the music industry without purely artistic purposes.
Here's an exercise for you. Pick up a song that you already know, any song, and rearrange it. You may say, this is too complex, I never did it. Well, okay, start the simplest way. Write down the chords. Pick up your piano or guitar. Play it several times. Change the rhythm, change one chord, then two. Record that. Plug your MIDI keyboard and add some few things, maybe a loop, maybe strings, simple stuff, find sounds. Little by little, you will realize that you are in fact accomplishing the most important part of the process. Segregating what you like from what you don't. Defining why some sounds suit better than other ones. Detailing, in fact with spoken words, the sensations that one sound or other causes you.
Assume what's come to us is a more interesting melody, something substantial, and that'll let us explore possible harmonic changes. Then that would be the next step, however. We will see it in the next chapter. Thank you for watching this, up until now. Hi again. This is the point where I believe I'm already working on a solution in a concrete manner. I grab the guitar and start trying things out. It's like making sketches on paper of some architectural piece, for example. The question is very intuitive, not to put chords just for the sake of it, to achieve a fluidity that is interesting at first listen.
A chord is part of a story where things happen. Things born, develop, tell stories, decrease, and most of the times arrive to an end. You may say that you can tell a story with just one chord. So, what's the difference between knowing all the rules and using harmony as a territory that would help assisting and sustaining areas where emotions can take place? Well, the difference is sensitivity. Of course, we must know what a 2-5-1 is, what secondary dominant means, what a circle of fifths is, what is chord substitutions, what an altered chord brings to the mix, etc. Same as a doctor must have studied anatomy in order to become the professional that is today so that he can treat your flu. If the only way to learn harmony is studying and applying everything the way that is said to be studied and applied, then the result will probably be lacking sensitiveness. It will all make perfect sense, but it's the human factor what makes harmony a real experience. The use of harmony implies then care, knowledge, creativity, and most of all, sensitivity. Another important thing to have in mind would be the minimum knowledge of the style in which we are trying to fit certain chords.
We need to construct the sequence of sound events over time as the body requests us to experience what it desires to experience. A friend once told me that to use complex chords, they must already be in your mind, meaning we need exposure to music rich in chords.
One of my first clients sent me a melody telling me that she didn't exactly know what style she wanted for her song. Her melody was this. Because she didn't know what style she wanted, and also because I wanted to impress her, I decided to send her 2 little examples. One of them would be very rhythmic and would have very simple harmony. The other one would be a bit more sophisticated from the point of view of harmony, but would be more chill out in terms of rhythm. And once I was so enthusiastic, I made a third one, just for fun. So these are the 3 versions I sent her. My client chose the third option, which brings me to the next important point. You don't always need to make things harmonically complex. Sometimes simpler stuff brings better results.
I recommend listening to a lot of music from genres in which harmony plays an intrinsic role. There are music genres that already use complex chords and melodies, and that's what characterizes them, for example jazz and bossa nova. I recommend composers like Bill Evans or Jovan, and also musicians with influences from styles that people like them took to masterful levels. Subgenres, you could say, or rather, music that belongs to other genres but with great jazz influences. Take 6 in vocal music, Roy Ayers in funk, Incognito in acid jazz. I've chosen to work on this chapter with the melody that we all know. Besides being a beautiful melody, it's suitable for trying things.
There are songs that definitely don't need its harmony to be changed. They are perfect the way they are, so no need for harmony changes. However, working out harmony is always a challenge. So if you want the real challenge, pick up a perfect song and re-harmonize it.
Thanks for watching. Let's move to the next one. Hello again. In this chapter, you'll see that in percussion you can do a lot with very few. In my opinion, the most important thing about using percussion in an acoustic music arrangement is the groove. In that sense, it is of no use or little use to know a style if one cannot play it in the way one knows a rhythm or another should sound.
The rhythm and the groove are living entities. They need to be observed through their charismatic horizontal way of walking. The vertical analysis of a rhythmical pattern could only be useful if we really need to dismember a complex pattern in order to understand its compounded nature from the point of view of maths, let's say. But you should never see it that way when you are trying to perform it. If you want to play with groove, what you need is to jump to the horse's back and join him while he is already running. Don't try to ride him. Just join him. Otherwise, you'd be risking the temptation to analyze every movement of every muscle of the horse, distracting your inner being in such a way that you will feel disconnected and uncoordinated.
The groove is not something that can flow from effort, but rather it must be or pre-exist in our body beforehand. In any case, the only effort we should pay attention to is to enter that channel, that vibe, that energy, that atmosphere.
It's the same feeling we might have experienced dancing.
Groove is natural when the person executing it has played a style of music for a long time and danced to it when they were young, entering the vibe, activating impulses, unsure if they're electric or chemical or both, that make you want to dance when you hear a rhythm you like and feel compelled to move. And I believe it's tied to a memory in the body, to a rhythmic experience we've already had.
If you feel you don't have a nice inner groove, ask yourself this. When I was a child, did I dance a lot? Did I ever enjoy dancing, moving with the flow? How comfortable did my body feel doing it? If your answers to these questions go from very uncomfortable, I never knew how to dance well, I felt embarrassed, etc., then that might be the reason for your lack of groove, if that was really your case. Of course, there is a necessary technical approach to dancing. At some point, we must have needed to learn some few steps, observed a person who already danced well, tried to copy their movements, and for that, certainly we need to have a time to observe our own movements. But precisely, that's the thing. What exactly happened during that process? Probably the rhythm was always ahead of us while we were trying to catch it. The same thing would occur when we are learning to play percussion instrument. Doesn't matter if you have a good groove or not. We need to learn the first steps in order to feel mentally free when playing the cajon or the conga, or if it is drums, then maybe even several years. But after that stage, everything should just flow. Same as when we used to dance as children or teens. So, the assessment seems to be clear. If you haven't danced, you cannot have a natural groove. Well, of course you need to practice. Please don't get me wrong, you need to develop and perfect your technique. You can't call yourself a professional percussionist or drummer if you haven't practiced countless hours with the metronome. My point is, if the only way one has been trying to acquire a good inner groove through is that one, then probably the result will not be the most natural.
From my past, there were rhythms I didn't handle well despite knowing how they had to sound. No matter how hard I tried, I never reached the desired groove I wanted. But I was making a lot of effort. The groove is not something that can flow from effort, but rather it must be or pre-exist in our body beforehand. I felt powerless, so what I did, and here is my first piece of advice on what not to do in a session, was to try to move every hit using flex time or the piano roll if I had used any MIDI sound. The only thing that leads to is frustration. Today I can't listen to my old recordings, I would re-record them, but you learn from everything, and that's the best way to progress. Certainly one would like to have all the percussion instruments in the world, at least I would. Some colors are very difficult to achieve, and when one has no choice but to use MIDI sound banks, what becomes difficult is working with dynamics, for example. In that sense, there is no comparison with an acoustic percussion instrument. That doesn't mean, anyway, with some ingenuity you can do something interesting. Actually, certain MIDI percussion instruments are functional and even effective in terms of their sound, and they do not require as much dynamic work such as Asian gongs and similar items of that nature. I would then divide the percussion work into two categories, the quantifiable and the non-quantifiable.
The best way to groove without quantizing. If you need to record something groovy using different instruments and in a style of music that wouldn't really work using quantizable MIDI loops, it might be a good idea to pre-set up your own reference, to record the primary groove before even doing your actual takes. Let's say you need to do something like this. Oh, no, no, whoa. It's okay to do it like that if the piece is intended to be recorded with only just vocals and guitar, let's say. If you want to set up a fixed tempo, you will probably record over a click, which is alright too. But if you need or want to add a few other instruments to this, you might want to be more strategic and think of approaching the whole process in a different way before even starting your first take. For example, find the right vibe and get it into your mind the simplest possible way. You might want to sing the groove and doing percussion with your own body, for example, like this. Record some few bars of this without even thinking too much. Choose a couple of bars, the ones that you think are most groovy, and loop them. I can feel my performance is smoother already by playing along with my own groovy loop. To do your first take, don't just start with the usual 4 beats counting. It's better always to arrive groovy to the section you want to record. So what we're going to do is to start playing earlier, so that by the time we get to the recording point, we are already dancing. That makes a huge difference. Now you can start adding other instruments. It will be more fluent, more enjoyable to record, and definitely more groovy.
To groove in an unfamiliar rhythm or music from a distant culture, play with people who have danced to that rhythm. This helps you incorporate the groove and expand your musical horizons. I'll share a story that greatly influenced me in that regard.
I've been a fan of the flamenco guitar since I was very young. I always thought that I had to practice as much as possible in order to one day maybe play well. I managed to develop certain ability on the instrument, and I carried on with that for several years. But in 2008, everything changed. I was on tour with a flamenco band. The singer was a guy called José Parra. He was a very professional flamenco singer that used to be part of Vicente Amigo's band for several years. Let me tell you what happened one day before the gig started.
Ese.
But then, concretely, what should one do if they need to record a rhythm they don't fully handle in their body? One option is to immerse yourself in playing that rhythm for a while, at least a few weeks, until the body's reflexes understand what it's about and the rhythm flows. The other option is, of course, to call a person whose professional profile is the one we need and ask them to record it. The third option, no less valid if one must produce a job well done, which would be optimal, is to obtain a firm foundation on which to later record live on top. The idea is that if you lack the right groove to record the rhythm of a specific style, the groove is already well done prior to recording any instrument. That you have it on a track all the time as a general, concrete, powerful, and solid rhythmic sound. Whether you download a particular loop from the internet or a percussionist friend who knows the style sends you a track with, 4 or 8 measures to loop, or you find an appropriate loop bank, after which, and this is just a piece of advice, but I think it's very relevant, you will have to record one on top so that the arrangement sounds natural and also played according to the shape of the song, or the theme, or whatever, with its cuts, its breaks, dynamics, etc. Always striving to be carried by the groove of the track we prepared. Thanks for watching. Till now.
Expectations versus reality. Did you ever feel that your song should sound like this? But in reality, the result was more like this. Which elements are the ones that dictate the path that will bring us to what we have in mind? What kind of decoding needs to be done here? Is it operating with the right aspects, components? Is it experience, sensitivity, imagination? In this chapter, we will inquire deeply into the gap that exists between knowing how something should sound and making it really sound the way we want it to sound. When I was young, I was, without being aware of it, often trapped or graphed into the following situation. Watching a movie, I was able to judge how good or bad it was. Even more, I was able to think solutions to the weak points that I perceived as mistakes in the script, in the production, the performances, and so on. Same thing with all kinds of artistic pieces or disciplines. When I was listening to a piece of music, for example, whatever style, from classical to pop music, rock or whatever, I was able to understand the intentions of the composer, the ideas, why he or she did this or that in such way. I was satisfied with myself because I was able to deeply feel what the composer was trying to express. Now, by being able to do that, by thinking that I understood a piece and not only perceived what was behind the construction process of it, but most of all felt deep emotions in front of it, I thought that I could also be able to compose, construct, build, or create a piece of the same magnitude. It wasn't until later on, years later, when I was studying and began to do my own stuff, that I started to realize that producing the results I wanted wasn't as easy as just being able to judge something or just having in mind the general sound of my amazing piece and in my heart the deep feelings that the result would produce on me and in others. Get knowledge in favor of expressing ideas. So first of all, get knowledge. After that, use knowledge in favor of expressing your ideas. A number of times I came across instructions from clients in the range of, I need this part to sound more pure, it's like too dense, I want my vocals sound less like into a box. These chords should sound more like reflecting a faraway memory and things like that. They knew exactly how their music should sound like, but they weren't able to translate that into concrete standard operative frameworks.
What's the minimum amount of knowledge we would need to have in order to accomplish a result according to what we want a piece of music to sound like? And what happens if we don't have any or just very poor technical knowledge? Let's start from the beginning, increasing the parameters. In order to come up with an idea, you need nothing, zero. If you are creative and passionate, it might have happened to you that one day you were in the right mood, maybe you were nostalgic or introspective and felt the need to express or say something through music. And even if you knew nothing at all, you grabbed a guitar or piano from a friend and surprisingly, with just a couple of notes and an improvised melody, you build a nice phrase. This might be the most beautiful moment of all. Feelings live in that moment. That's magic. But that is just the beginning. Now, we might feel that we need to start embellishing this score. What else do we need if we know nothing at all? Let's suppose you know nothing. You've been a lawyer all your life until yesterday. Well, you need a computer, a recording program, an interface, and a microphone. Assuming we all have already that, the next thing is no. It's not recording. It is essential that you learn to play at least one harmonic instrument. It could be guitar or piano. I guess you already do play one of those instruments, so let's say that the following thing would be to learn some harmony. To dig into harmony without any knowledge could be intimidating. One can get lost in its infinity. So I'd say start exploring a functional approach. Concepts like key center, modulation, simple cadences like the 2-5-1, and the relationship between harmony and melody. Let's assume that you are already advanced in that matter. You already have at least a decent home studio, you have influences in your mind, and you are used to producing simple ideas. Okay, so that's the minimum you need. It is all about getting better through time and experience. The more we work, the better we get at achieving great results. Everything is already done somewhere, somehow and sometime. Every melody you could come out with in your head, every harmonic change, every sensation, shape, sound and vibe is or are in your mind because you've been influenced by music you enjoyed in the past. Nothing is new. Only some little variations of those elements might be new, unless you are into experimenting with new parameters and really original ideas. Check for example the biggest names from the 20th century, Alban Berg, Pierre Boulez, Stockhausen. In any case, the umbrella under which this lesson has been shaped around is something less unusual. I will assume that most of us move in the range of pop, rock, jazz or world music, and all the things in between, even movie soundtracks. In which part of the process of making your piece of music sound great, intuition has a place? I don't know. But, in my opinion, by absorbing as much music as possible and as diverse as possible, our intuition may become more and more sophisticated. The more we listen, the more we will find things that are similar to what we want our music to sound like. Not the same, but similar. Of course, sophistication is not always the answer to what you want your music to sound like. Your music could be simple or complex, but we are just talking about the intuition factor now. I will assume that you do listen to music a lot. I'd say that the amount of time you spend listening to music is not the most relevant thing. Rather, the diversity of styles you digest, and this is my point. There is music out there that might be particularly close to the best versions of what you would like to come out with. You might discover that something new interests you, a style you've never heard of. That doesn't mean that you will end up doing music like that. It means that you are enriching the palette of influences that define your ideas, and by doing that, you will be more accurate, more solid and detailed whenever you use your intuition. It will not change your intuition, it will make it more refined and mature. An allegory to that would be this: the more we read books, the better we write and speak. But it shouldn't be the same book over and over again. Sensitivity without knowledge is too abstract as to become a piece of music. Does sensitivity bothers during the process of making it tangible? Well, no, it's a balance between things. All is negotiable. For example, if I am stuck in a section because I don't get to the right sound, the right chord or any other aspect, I feel I cannot make this music reflect or match the potentiality of my lyrics, for example. It is better to leave it for a while. maybe to the next day where I can give it a fresh listen. Then I might be able to judge that section better and come out with better solutions. The other side of the coin would be if I'm doing a strict mental attempt with a complex part of my piece and I am struggling, getting nowhere, frustrated and going in circles all the time, then it might be good to breathe a little bit. Get out of what you perceive as the task. Don't listen to music at all, do other stuff, go out, walk, think, read, etc. Later on, maybe the next day you realize that you weren't really doing music in the artistic sense of the word music. You were rather almost playing Sudoku with musical elements. I'm sure that in another time you will discover that what really satisfies you inside requires much simpler solutions and decisions. And don't ever forget to tune in your sensitivity and intuition. It's a balance. How favorable or adverse is the role of enthusiasm in our work? Well, it's the generator of it all. So in that regard, I'd say it's essential. Although it may become adverse when we don't have the necessary knowledge. One becomes frustrated, so you know what to do. A whole new world will appear to your eyes when you are finally able to translate feelings, intuition, and enthusiasm into a great piece of music. What knowledge? Well, learn to play well a harmonic instrument, learn to use the recording program like Logic, Pro Tools, etc. Listen to lots of music in the biggest range of diversity as possible. Work, do mistakes. How long will all that take me? Forever. It doesn't matter at which point of the learning process and making experience you are. The important things are learning and doing experience forever. Are you already a professional arranger or composer? Well, learn the basics of other instruments. For example, if you don't play drums, at least learn some technique. It won't take you long. Say, I'm going to give it 3 or 4 months with the metronome, following tutorials or courses, and you will get very enthusiastic recording drums or percussion for yourself. You will find intuition in new fields, and that is what the main thing is all about. Even though my main instrument is the guitar, through the years I've been learning other instruments. You don't need to master a new instrument, it's only about learning the basics in order to be able to record simple stuff. By doing so, you will not only increase your potential as an instrumentalist, but you will also be able to interact with other musicians, arrangers and producers in a more professional way, and that will bring you to better spheres in the world of music. Learn the basics of orchestration. You can find thousands of courses where to dig for information about it. Go deeper into harmony. If you have been doing mainly pop music, get into jazz. I don't mean only enjoying it. Do it also from an academic point of view. Your mental and imaginative capital and resources will improve massively. Check out how other arrangers, composers and producers work. There are some great videos from Jacob Collier where you can see him working live.
Yeah. See where I'm going with this?
It's very inspiring and it will definitely open your mind. Listen to new music. There is a YouTube channel called The Art of Listening.
In search of the new super ape and potentialities leading.
These guys upload amazing music all the time. Music that I'm sure you've never heard before. If you are already used to compose, arrange and produce, do this. Pick up a melody, any simple famous or original song, and try to arrange it in at least 4 or 5 different styles. It's like pumping muscles, makes your potential grow increasingly and exponentially incredibly fast. Everything I've said in this lesson doesn't equal no improvisation. Do improvise the process, do many things, be free. All I am saying is that the gap that exists between knowing how something should sound and making it really sound the way we want it to sound will become narrow more and more every time. Pursue, seek and aim for perfection. Care about details. Things may not be the way you want them to be if you are not solid and strict. I am talking about simple things. If a scale in a solo was wrong, record it again until it's well done. Mind the groove seriously. Recordings are forever. Be willing to work more now so that sooner than later you can work less, producing better results. I'll repeat that. Be willing to work more now so that sooner than later you can work less, producing better results. Regarding the example with which I started, it would be opportune to say that the most important thing would not be that you come out with a very different result than expected. The worst thing would be to think that you did achieve the right result when you didn't. I'll show you what's going on here in these two versions, but I won't make any comments. You find the differences and make conclusions. Say my name. Say my name. Creation belongs to us all. It's part of our amazing human condition. However, when you're trying to professionally work, it is better to be and feel humble, rather than trying to feel like a star. Otherwise, the real star, the inner star, the one that makes you feel that you have something powerful to say, will not come out effectively in the shape of a great piece of music. See you in the next one. One thing that we should definitely be aware of is the use of particular chords. Chords need to be treated with certain amount of moderation sometimes, some caution. You need to be absolutely sure that they are used in the right context. So for example, let's take Amy Winehouse's song, You Know I'm No Good. It's a beautiful song with very simple chords, triads, most of them. Probably not the right thing to do there. You need a better context in order for this chord to sound naturally and fluent. Let's listen to this other example now. Of course, it's all subjective, but in my opinion that works much better. Another thing that I consider a mistake is the excessive use of things that don't bring any kind of benefit to the music. Maybe you're not entirely happy about how the general thing is developing, so you might think that this or that instrument will change the chorus, but you need to be careful with that too. It might happen that you get to a point in which you don't even remember what you wanted or what exactly the problem was. Let's use the same song. For example, here you say, okay, this is simple, there are only 3 chords. What I'm gonna do here? So you say, okay, this could be a delicate, subtle sound, so I'm going to use a glockenspiel and a ukulele, doing an ostinato there, and see what happens. And you're happy with that so far. This probably needs some strings. It's like a movie soundtrack or something like that. So let's try with some violin, some viola there. Why not to try a double bass doing a pizzicato and a cello? Why not? Of course. Okay, this is sounding amazing. There's some contrapoint there. Let's do the piano. Okay, that sounds good. Some flute. Flute will make it sound even more orchestral. This is so beautiful. What about the guitar? Yeah, the original guitar. Kind of some overdrive there, but hey, this needs drums, definitely drums. And if we have drums, of course the bass. Okay, so double bass and bass, that's that clash? Okay, let's cover that a little bit with some percussion there. Wow, this is very organic. Why not beatboxing? Yeah, that adds where's the melody? Yeah, another guitar for the melody, that's cool. This is too organic, a little beat there. Yeah, and you know what? People love sax. Yeah, we need some ethnic instruments. No, that's keyboard, that's too electric. I'd say organic. And your man sings in the choir, that's this is cool. No, not anymore. The third thing would be to choose a wrong style for a song. And again, this is totally subjective. I'd say you can do a good job mixing two completely different styles. But once again, you need to be careful with that. For example, this Amy Winehouse song is in 4/4, right? So if we choose a 6/8 rhythm, sort of like African, for example, I love African rhythm, but I don't think it suits very well here. But again, this is subjective. Maybe in certain context it would work. See for yourself. If what you want is something rhythmic and at the same time acoustic, why not the simplest choice? It's always great to listen to some funk and acoustic instruments, sort of these guys, for example. You know, this kind of lineup, like Jessie J in this version of Rock With You, and these sort of things.
Thank you for watching this episode. Let's proceed to the next one. Hello again. In this chapter, I will talk about how I work on my orchestrations. I do it in a relatively simple way, but always with some premises beforehand. Orchestration is not something you can just throw instruments into. There are some parameters that we must respect. If you've studied orchestration at the conservatory, maybe you know more about this than I do. As I've already mentioned, this isn't a treatise on orchestration, much less. It is just the manner in which I work and the manner in which it appears to me that everything operates as it should. If you haven't studied orchestration, on the other hand, maybe this chapter will give you some basic ideas, or maybe not so basic, about how to orchestrate a song or a musical piece. First, I think the orchestra should be seen as separate blocks.
We need to break it down to families of instruments. This is the order in which I see them in my mind. Strings, woodwinds, brasses, percussion, and what I call extras, which in my mind are harp, glockenspiel, marimba, etc.
Each of these groups must operate independently from the others. In fact, we can utilize only one of those groups, like the strings and nothing else, or just the metals. If two groups happen to sound at the same time, there must be a reason for it. The orchestra is like a living organism that has other living organisms inside, which move independently, but sometimes support each other to produce different effects and sonorities, either to generate more power or to suggest greater delicacy or things like that.
The elements of orchestration when we are working in a song or a sharp piece of music are similar, but not exactly the same, to those used by, let's say, Beethoven, Berlioz, Brahms, Mahler, etc. The big difference is the proportions of the works. Orchestral works in classical music basically involve shapes and forms of gigantic proportions compared to the orchestration of a song or a movie soundtrack. There are so many elements, so many themes developed, so much complexity. What we are going to see here is the orchestra as a tool for making a piece of music sound more powerful and more sublime or glorious. Of course, any time that a song needs so. We will discuss melody, timbres, texture, harmony, and contrapoint without taking care of, for example, the fact that you would need to write in different keys for transposing instruments. Also, we are not going to be very strict with the technical possibilities of every single instrument. We are going to think of the orchestra as a functional tool, as long as it is part of an arrangement for a song. And let's be honest, in most of the cases, the most probable situation will be that we will not be able to hire a real orchestra to record in the song we are working on. We are talking about using MIDI orchestration. Let's don't forget the principles of orchestration, but let's also be aware of where we are and what we can count off in terms of resources.
Let's jump into an arrangement I did a couple of months ago of a song called Ordinary World, in which I used orchestration.
What has happened?
That's halfway through. Let's jump straight to the beginning of the strings. We are starting in the higher range of it. A tremolo doing a single line, long notes, and a pizzicato arpeggio on the top of it. Here the range goes lower. The pizzicatos are done by the basses now, and the, let's say, fast arpeggios become slow single notes. At the same time, violas and cellos add deepness, doing harmony. The full string section comes in. Oops, double basses. Not much melodic movement here, in fact not contrapoint at all, just plain harmony. Let's talk very quickly and briefly about chord voicing. You may already know this very well, especially if you're a pianist. But if you're a guitarist or you play a wind instrument, for example, it's worth a recap. 1. Avoid parallel movement every time you can. Guitarists are much used to parallel movement, with the exception of jazz guitarists that knows this very well. We go from one chord to another, moving each line in the same direction. It's okay for doing, for example, power chords on the electric guitar, but we need to avoid this in orchestration as much as we can. 2. Try to move each line to the closest note of the following chord. Not only avoid parallel movement, but move to the closest next voice from a new chord.
Here is a very simple exercise. We just need to find a very simple chord. Let's say C major, right? C, E, G. Let's suppose that we are going to F major. We need to avoid this. F, A, C. We have a C here, and we have a C here. So this C can keep in the same place. That means that it's not even moving. So the E goes to the F, which is this, and the G goes to the A. So instead of C, E, G, F, A, C, we can sing C, E, G, C, F, A.
3. Try varying the rhythm between voices. We'll see that in a second when we talk about contrapoint. Let's see what the woodwinds are doing here. We have a flute and clarinet duo. The rhythmical movement is different in each of them. They are independent. There isn't one doing a main melody and the other accompanying that. The importance of each is equal. Oboe and bassoon also move with independency. Unlike the strings, here there is counterpoint. But where is counterpoint? The word counterpoint is quite significant. We could well say that it implies the idea of one point being against another point. In a musical context, we could refer to it as line against line or voice against voice. The most common use of melody these days is that a main line or voice or part runs on the top of a sonorous space that supports it, as if it was some kind of mattress where the melody either lies down, stands, or jumps. On the contrary, counterpoint is the independent movement of two or more melodies at the same time. It could sometimes completely erase the idea of even distinguishing a predominant melody above the others. Let's listen to a couple of bars from a fugue that I wrote some few years ago. I'm going to emphasize each line with a different color so that you can follow one at a time. Let's follow the second voice with red color. The third one will be green. So, counterpoint. Here is a simple exercise for you. You don't need any specific technical knowledge for this, neither technology. Only you, your brain, and maybe the sound recorder from your phone. Pick up a melody and start imagining counter melodies above it. Sing them. Do it many times. Find new melodies. Play with the rhythm. Think of the phrases of the original melody as questions and find answers for it. Just like this. It's a good idea to record them, just like that, in your phone, and re-listen to them. Maybe you find out that this or that works better, that some of them are more appropriate for what you want to listen, what your ears are expecting to hear. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. I promise. Let's go back to the example. This is the sound of the full orchestra.
One work you should definitely listen to is Pictures at an Exhibition by Mussorgsky. This work is originally for piano but was orchestrated by Ravel. Listen and study the original version for piano solo well, and then, listening to the orchestrated version, pay attention to the timbres and to which instruments or which group of instruments Ravel has chosen at each moment of the work to generate such or such effect. The second thing I recommend is that when you watch a movie whose soundtrack is orchestral music, try to distinguish which sections or blocks of the orchestra sound at such or such moment. What are the sensations that the composer or arranger wants to accompany? And why and when does he decide that the strings are better, or at another time the brass or percussion or whatever? Thanks for watching. Let's move to the next one. Hello again. If you wanted to dedicate yourself to fixing things like I do, that is, autonomously and self-sufficiently, and generate arrangements and studio productions ready to be delivered or presented in case it was your own music, you must master at least one instrument well, and it is almost mandatory that this be a harmonic instrument. Assuming that is your case, and assuming that you play well, or more than well, or that what you dominate is a melodic instrument but you also play at least a little guitar or piano, then my first advice is that you consider starting to play other instruments. Even if it's at a very basic level, not to give concerts, but enough to be able to handle yourself in a session without getting frustrated or wasting so much time when recording. In my case, the thing I've played the most is the guitar. Luckily, or out of curiosity, or out of necessity, I have had to is one way to put it, because I love learning new instruments. I have had to learn a little bit about other instruments.
I've been a live gigs guy for a long time, and also have been recording through the years. My approach to music production has changed inexorable since I built my own studio. I'm going to show you in a concise and very dynamic way how, when, and what I would usually record. I'm going to steal these 4 chords from this Incognito song. It's very important to find and set up the tempo you want. That's the default 120. Let's try slower tempo. Starting with a MIDI keyboard will allow you to tune better the acoustic instruments later. If you start out of tune, you will cry later on. Alright, let's quantize that and loop this bar. After that, I usually record a percussion instrument that could also be looped. Shaker is a good option. At this point, I have the references I need. Let's start the live takes. Cajon will give me some groove. I always record 2 cajons, it's a personal choice. During the mix, I'm going to pan the cajons, one to the left, one to the right. It'll give it a nice stereo vibe. Double bass. This is also a live take, same as if you were performing live. I'm gonna copy-paste for the following 2 bars. It's time for some snare and hi-hat. Of course, a new track. Same as before, a minute earlier I was imagining a nice pattern, nothing special, just intuition. After the piano and the shaker, the purpose was to give this song a nice live human groove, so rhythm guitar would be a nice choice right now. The pattern, same thing, imagination and intuition. No need to say that all choices here go well with this short piece. Whatever music you do could have very different approaches, of course. Some extra percussion. I'm not sure this is necessary, but it's fun. I can always erase it later. Tambourine works well, especially in kind of a chorus vibe, which seems to be the case of this. It sounds like a chorus, doesn't it? The new soul drum set from Logic has a nice kick sound. Let's quantize that. Okay, let's destroy this with my voice. It's alright.
Thank you for watching this episode. Let us proceed to the next one. For a long time, the idea has been promoted that one must excel in one thing, in a subject, without neglecting any detail in the learning processes, nor leaving empty spaces, because in that way, one never reaches to master a specific and concrete area, and ends up becoming somewhat average in numerous areas simultaneously, instead of becoming an expert in one thing, which is what one is supposed to do. Maybe because all individuals require to earn a living or stand before the world from a specific status and acquire a place in it, have a job, etc. The normal thing, right? I have the suspicion, however, that this opinion may have been playing a somewhat harmful role against versatility and even creativity in the case of music. It has been mostly established that one should dedicate their entire life to a specific instrument, or in exceptional cases, one could study composition or orchestral conducting, roles for which it is well seen because it is necessary, of course, to delve a little into each instrument, explore them, and get to know them at least a little. But in general, one dedicates oneself to a single instrument, in some cases 2, 3 or more, but it is not usual. The same occurs with the discord that some of us had at some point, that of being a composer or musician. There's a competition, a race where one must run fast because if not, they'll be left without a place in the world. In other words, one desires to be the top instrumentalist, the top jazz pianist, the top funk drummer, the top opera singer, or whatever. That makes there be few versatile people. And that's why becoming an arranger or producer will make you different. It will make you stand out. You will be super necessary and appreciated by musicians, singers, producers, agents, etc. Arrangers are essential in the world of music. From my perspective, creativity is not merely a specific instrument, but it is even more than music itself and extends far beyond that in its scope and impact. To fix music, versatility and creativity must be prioritized.
Hi! Vocals are an incredibly versatile, dynamic, creative, and powerful weapon. We're going to talk about the use of some very interesting potential resources and aspects such as ostinati, overlapping, call and response, rhythmical patterns, reharmonization, using snaps and other simple percussive non-instrumental beats, and of course harmony and contrapoint too. Vocal arrangements are as diverse as the amount of musical styles around the world.
To see the sun come shine.
Oh, how I long to be the man that I used to be.
Let's narrow all this to some few things only. I prepared some few examples where you will be able to see those different aspects that I was mentioning before. Let's see in detail the effect that each of them can produce in a concrete piece of music and how some of them could make a difference in your song. I've chosen a song from Sting called 7 Days. This is not a simple song, it is written in 5/4, meaning there are 5 beats per bar. The melodic and harmonic aspects are beautifully and smoothly constructed too. Let's listen to the first example. 7 days was all she wrote, a kind of ultimatum note. She gave to me, she gave to me. When I thought the field had cleared, seems another suit to bear to challenge me. Oh, it's me. Though I had to make a choice, my options are decreasing mostly rapidly. Well, we'll see. I don't think she'd love this time. I really had to make her mine. It's plain to me. It's him or me. Monday, I could wait till Tuesday if I make up my mind. Wednesday would be fine. Thursday's on my mind. Friday gave me time. Saturday could wait. Sunday is too late. This is more or less a cover of the original version, only, let's say, transcribed as a vocal arrangement. Before breaking down the different sections of this first example, I'll take a time to talk about the most important concept of arranging for vocals. This will apply to the following examples as well, to a certain extent. If we want or need to do a version that is very similar to an original instrumented pre-existing song, we need to translate the sound first. What I mean is that copying exactly what the instruments are doing, especially the accompanying instruments, might not be the best solution. You need to solve what could be the most effective way of making your version sound well on its own. This is fundamental. This criteria will lift the level of your version compared to the one made by, let's say, someone that has just trying to gutturally correspond to instruments that have nothing to do with the sound of the human voice. So for example, the percussion here is different from what the drums are doing in the original version. Soft enough, done with my mouth, some clappings and snaps. The patterns I am doing respond to my instincts. Try different things. Use your imagination for it. For example, mark the beat with your claps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Taka kada, taka kada, tara kada, tara ta, or tara ta, tara ta, tara ta. This keyboard stuff is quite literal. The bass and the pizzicato chords. The real masters doing this sort of things are Take 6. So this is the basic accompanying section. If this intends to be an arrangement, we need to change or add some textures, otherwise the listener could lost interest listening to the same exact thing twice. So why not place in some ostinatos? Ostinatos are great, these repetitive patterns that gives the thing a steady vibe that adds a new texture to a section. So we could start talking about polyrhythmia here. It would be the equivalent version of contrapoint in harmony. We will talk about contrapoint in a minute. Percussion increases more and more towards the chorus. The choir needed a general push, so what I did is to divide the voices into big groups, one doing more a rhythmical section, but then also a more linear and sustained harmonic section. Listen to the full thing without percussion. With percussion now. It is a good idea to dub your melody if you want to make the sound bigger, maybe for the chorus or any other section that needs to sound more powerful. Monday, I could wait till Tuesday. Pan them nicely. I make up my mind. Wednesday would be fine. Thursday's on my mind. Friday give me time. Saturday could wait. Sunday be too late. Let's listen to the second example. This one is a reharmonized version. 7 days was all she wrote. A kind of ultimatum note she gave to me. She gave to me. Monday, I could wait till Tuesday. If I make up my mind, Wednesday could be fine. Thursday's on my mind. Friday give me time. Saturday could wait, but Sunday be too late. If you are into harmony already, here are the chords. There is a trio doing the melody in 3 different lines. The matter here would be to take care of the chords you are using at every given time. If you are using perfectly predictable chords, it might work to just improvise a second line using your intuition only. But as soon as you take the risk of trying to use other type of chords, some of the intuitive notes could clash with them. Intuition always tries to go to familiar places, and that is why it is very important that you listen to new music all the time. I'm sure you noticed that there is a considerable change of texture from the verse into the chorus. Things like can can make a big difference. The third example is planned to show some contrapoint. Let's see. Monday, I could wait till Tuesday. I make up my mind. The most basic way of describing contrapoint would be to refer to it as independent polyphony. This independency encompasses rhythm and melody. Harmony, however, is a non-negotiable aspect. Let's see. Monday, it's easy to catch what is going on when there are only two melodies. If I make up my mind. Monday, I could wait. This is the typical call and response situation. If I make up my mind. Let's start adding one line at a time. Maybe it becomes less easy to hold in your mind what's going on in each of the lines. Monday, I could wait till Tuesday. I make up my mind. The next example deals with homophony or chordal melody. All voices sing unison with the rest of them, but each syllable has a different chord. But Sunday be too late. But Sunday. Now that you have an idea of some few aspects, resources and techniques, I'm going to show you my vocal version of Adele's Skyfall, which I did some time ago. Pay attention to what's going on in each of the sections. I'll leave you my last tip. If you want your song to sound even bigger, record 4 takes for each melodic line, pan them nicely, and then export those 4 lines groups into single lines, and import them into a new project. It will save you lots of space in your computer, and more than one headache. See you in the next one.
Hello again. Consider the fact that there's a growing number of singers or songwriters who want and need someone to arrange or produce their songs. I think technology has made people who previously did not sing or did not dare to sing now do it with a certain degree of self-confidence. Today, most people can have a computer at home, buy a MIDI keyboard, a microphone, an interface, and that's it. It's amazing, and I insist that this is a great time when many people have the chance to put their creativity into practice and for which they have relatively easy access to tech elements. If we add to that the fact that there are also amazing programs for editing clips, that's it. This enables individuals to present their own songs to the world with accompanying music videos that can be freely uploaded to YouTube or social media, allowing widespread access and viewership, and with all the enthusiasm in the world, of course. But that is also what makes there be an increasing demand to add professional people to a personal project, because everything is progressing as it advances. There is like a kind of competition and enthusiasm to sound more and more professional. Let's imagine the journey that an amateur singer takes, who with all their excitement and enthusiasm dreams of hearing their song play like the ones they listen to daily on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, or whatever. I have a lovely song. I want to record it, I want to record it, I want to record it. How wonderful. I purchased an awesome computer, installed it in Logic Pro. I don't know how to handle it. Luckily, there are about 10,000 YouTube tutorials teaching everything you need to learn. What else do I need? A mic and an interface, according to what I understood in another tutorial on recording a song at home. Very good. What else? To record. How good. It's absolutely fantastic. But yes, here a guitar solo would be good, but I do not know how to play the guitar. Oops. What are the steps to make your song sound professional? Mixing and mastering.
I will learn. No, it doesn't seem to be that easy. This other guy says that a lot of experience is needed to do it well. What about my guitar solo? And if instead of this terrible sound I add a real saxophone here, how? Let's see, music production, that is exactly what I need. An individual with experience who offers ideas, a producer of music, an arranger of music. Ah, these are the people who will make my song sound professional. Wow, I will search for a guitarist, a mixing and mastering tech, an arranger, a producer. Yes. And then, of course, the music video I made at home is good, but imagine if I also hire pros who can film and edit it like the videos I like the most. Wow, what enthusiasm. And it's so easy. Let's see, where can I hire those people? It's easy, of course it is. It is for those who want or need professional musicians. And it is also for musicians who can already record at home, wherever they are. It's our moment, an incredible time. Before talking about the platforms I work with, I'm going to tell you in 2 minutes how I got to them. While living in Switzerland, I started composing regularly. Once I had enough instrumental compositions, I recorded an album to showcase my work. A classmate from the conservatory in Lugano, named Franco, worked in a recording studio. He assisted with my album recording, but the important detail is this. He suggested I purchase a used computer, my first. He personally installed my initial program, Cubase. In 2004, he told me to buy a great microphone for the price I had. I still have it. It worked well for recording the guitar, but not for vocals. A few years later, I had bought an old second-hand Mac from a musician. I had Logic installed, the program I use till now. At that time, version 7.0. One day, visited Franco and friends in Switzerland. Being in the studio where he worked, Franco gave me a microphone. He grabbed a box with a Rode T1000 from a shelf, handed it to me. The box was brand new, unused, with that microphone. With my old Mac, which was already old even when I bought it. With an Alesis interface, which is still around somewhere. And with the instruments I had at that time, is when I started researching how to work online. I had already tried without success with the one-man productions project. And although that project was more or less about the same thing I'm doing right now, although with more nuances because it covered other areas, it was not easy to reach potential clients. I was sure that there would be a lot of people who would need what I was doing, but I couldn't find them. That's where I found these platforms through which one can create a profile and offer services as a musician in any area. All professional musicians should possess a profile similar to that, either on one of the existing platforms or establish their own venture with comparable characteristics. If you don't have an online place like that, create a profile today on one of those platforms. Alternatively, start considering how to create your own platform to offer online what you do best. Not only because it will give you some money and a lot of satisfaction, but because there are surely many people who would like in their songs what you can offer as a musician. If you add to all this the little or much that you do playing live and some other idea, like for example a course like this or a YouTube channel, etc., I think one today has the possibility of making a living from music. Some suggestions on how to not just maintain a consistent workload from this point forward, but also acquire an increasing amount of work. Always be honest. Offer your customers the best you can do. Don't be a smooth talker. Remember, as mentioned in a prior chapter, the person hiring you entrusts more than a task to your hands. He is delegating a significant portion of his illusion in you, and out of respect for that, you have to give the best you can give. Implying clear limits. First, ensure clarity within, then clarify well before agreeing on a specific job to have clear limits. Communicate effectively and fluently. It is possible that whoever requires your assistance, or whoever needs your service, so to speak, may feel insecure and have never contacted a stranger to record or produce their music. The best way to make the person feel comfortable and trust your work is by clarifying all their doubts, sharing the process, letting them know you're working on it, delivering a first version on a specific day, discussing preferences, and assuring them of the desired result. This helps establish a strong foundation of trust and ensures that the final outcome aligns with their expectations. Don't complain about doing too much. It's common in the world of music or art, or in any field that requires creative work, for a situation to arise where the client is never satisfied, and that causes them to request 1,000 revisions and never end. My advice on this matter is as follows. Give more than one possibility in the first instance.
In my case, I always do 2, 3, 4, and even 5 examples, just a few measures. With different styles, different instrumentations, vibes, colors, textures, etc. That will not only give an incredible impression, but before making a complete arrangement, most of the responsibility will be his or hers. It won't happen that when you arrange it, the style is not as expected or things like that. Inquire about his music preferences, request examples, references, and sounds of his favorite bands, etc. Surprise him and make sure before doing the whole arrangement that the work you will do will be optimal for him or her. In my view, pursuing something we enjoy is never too burdensome. The more one works on this, the easier everything becomes and work dynamics become less and less overwhelming. Be punctual. First of all, if the order has reached you through your personal platform, then set specific deadlines. Start date, delivery date, and review dates. This will look more professional and save you from undesirable situations. If, alternatively, you've used a platform such as AirGeeks or Soundbeater, these platforms have set deadlines, as I've already explained. But if possible, even submit it before the scheduled time. If you do this, customers will give you a good review, you'll make a small name for yourself, they'll recommend you, they'll call you many times because they'll want another song and then another and another. It'll make them happy.
If you want to work as a professional arranger, you not only need experience and knowledge, but also social skills. When you do a good job, your client experiences absolute happiness. It is an enormous satisfaction to listen to your song, an intimate and personal piece of music, fully produced. And arrangement is, I'd say, the most important part of it. Be sincere with your clients. This is an intimate part of them, and no one wants to be foolish. Try to understand what the composer wants and needs, but also share your thoughts about their expectations. Present to him or her more than one option to choose from. Clients adore that. Be in touch all the time. Communicate with them as they were your best friends. In fact, if someone is doing music, composing and writing lyrics for their songs, it means that you and him or her have plenty of things in common, which makes this person a great candidate for being your friend. Perhaps even your best friends, who knows. Make their music sound so good that they would never have expected or imagined it would sound the way it does. If instead you've been commissioned a corporate gig or a commercial, an audio brand or something like that, then you need other type of social skills. Now you're part of a team. You need to understand that there is a chain of people that will interfere in your decisions, and you need to be prepared for doing whatever is needed to be done. Even when that implies you doing something you don't agree with, and even when what you consider the best option, the one that you think is perfect, is not accepted. In this sort of environment, always be nice. Never get offended. Don't take things personal. A task needs to be completed. You've been called because someone considers that you can cope with this task. So you do the best of your best and be prepared for working against some track if it is needed. Even from zero, there is no space for personal feelings. I am not talking about emotions. Being able to produce emotions is precisely the thing that leads someone to hire you in the first place. There are many ways of promoting yourself as an arranger. I'm not an expert on that, but I can give you some few ideas, things that I've done that worked well for me when I started. Make a list of close people that you know they would like to hear themselves singing a well-recorded and produced song of their choice. Who doesn't love that? Arrange a track for them. Make experience with them. Start learning how to be intuitive with the desires of people. Once you have done that, for free, start looking for singers that you can approach personally. Maybe your friends in Facebook, not necessarily people you know well, and tell them what you are up to. Offer to them an example for free. Take a little section of a song that they already have recorded, rearrange it, and send them few ideas. They will be glad to receive it, and if they like it, they will definitely have you in mind for their next project. Singers need arrangers. Once you have done some experience and you have some concrete examples to show, use a platform to present yourself and offer your service as an arranger. Make a great profile, write a concise and friendly description of what you do. Prepare a nice video, a good looking photo, and share it everywhere. It won't be long until you get your first gig. From then on, the more experience you get arranging, the better you get at it.
And this is what it's all about, isn't it? It's a wonderful time. Thank you for watching this episode. See you now.
Hi,
Do you do one thing at the time without having in mind what you will do next?
Yeah.
We need to manipulate everything surrounding our working space, the time we spend on it, and the attitude towards all tasks related to music production in a way that nothing could interfere with its process and progress. We need to recognize exactly what things lead to distraction. It might be a surprise to acknowledge what actually does distract us and what things don't. Why we are more awake and we feel enthusiasm and a desperate need for working in some project, but sometimes we feel completely opposite to that. We need to find strategies that will allow us to balance those edges. All this and more is what we will be talking about in this lesson. Some few years ago, I was very much into a subject that I had no clue at all. I was watching lots of videos about marketing, trying to learn a little bit about how things work in that area, how companies plan their strategies, how entrepreneurs think, what do they do and how. By the way, this is something that every musician should be at least a little bit aware of. Sometimes we think that we live in a parallel world, but we don't. We need to understand how things work. Anyway, I noticed that all those marketing videos were very strict regarding the need of having a very sharp and detailed agenda schedule. The thing is that in those agendas, the tasks were very repetitive, systematic, echoing every day the same exact way of doing things. It always sounded to me a little bit inhuman. If you are a very systematic guy and mentally very stable, I'm sure this will work for you perfectly. I think that a creative and rather sensitive thing such as doing music has characteristics that may not match from A to Z those strategies apply to entrepreneurship tasks. Without getting into any kind of philosophical statement, I must say that I am inclined to think that it's necessary to experience all kinds of mental states. The more experiences we have in life, the more creative we become at expressing ideas. It should not be a bad thing to feel out of energy one day or two. We should give us permission to be flexible with our emotions. What we need is to find an equilibrium between managing our emotions when we are down and establishing an elastic enough way of working so that our working flow doesn't counterbalance between zero and infinite. The tasks you set up for yourself to do shouldn't be 100% based on your emotions. Otherwise, everything could become too nebulous. If you are a composer or a songwriter, separate the passion from the practical tasks. If you are trying to find the right melody or harmony for that beautiful song you've been thinking about for some time, or you are these days into getting to the right lyrics because you feel they still don't match well what you want to express, take your time. Allow yourself not to do tasks. There will be time for that. Art is the most important thing of it all, so it's alright to be an entire day looking for the right chord. That shouldn't put pressure on you. The other part of the craft, the one that involves microphones, cables, recording, editing, mixing, etc., needs a plan. You will feel better if you focus on making a strategy, especially if you work as a producer and you have deadlines to get things done. Productivity is a consequence. Make a list today of tasks that you feel that you would be able to complete tomorrow. After that, make a rough timetable that compels you for doing each of them. Say, after having breakfast, I'm going to start doing the beat programming and some of the piano takes. That is enough for sending a demo to my friend Emma for her to record backing vocals. Don't say stuff like, I have to call my friend Emma. Instead try, tomorrow morning, during a coffee break, I'm going to call Emma and ask her if she can put vocals in the afternoon. If she does, I can in the meantime put some extra percussion to the last chorus. And then by the early evening, I'll give a quick listen to the whole thing, including Emma's vocals, to check out how the whole thing is going so far. That will allow me to plan what exactly needs to be reviewed, corrected, or improved during the next morning. This is quite a clear picture of what a standard day plan should look like. Know yourself and be realistic with your timetables. For example, I know that I can work very well during the whole morning and part of the afternoon. If I have a deadline to send an arrangement to a client and I got delayed for some reason, I can also work during the evening. I have done things that are unusual to me sometimes, like finishing a track at 4 a.m. because I had no choice. But that is not frequent. I am a morning person and there is no better pleasure for me than start working after my coffee in the morning. I'm also aware of what I am able to do better during the morning morning or what is better for me to do in the afternoon. So I plan my schedule according to that. Everybody reacts different and feel different in different parts of the day. Experiment with it. If you are a night person, try a couple of days setting up the alarm early and start doing things. Maybe you discover that you are very energetic in the morning, only you never worked so early before. There are two stages of concentration, a superficial one and a deep one. From the moment in which you start working on something seriously, during a period of time that happens roughly between 10 to 15 minutes, your concentration will be superficial. It is only after 15 minutes that you will be entering the deep concentration mode. That is the right stage for amazing productivity. If you get distracted during deep concentration, you will have to start from zero again. The mobile phone is obviously a very distracting object. Some people say it shouldn't be in the studio at all. You can do that, leave it outside, and it will definitely help. In my case, I do have my phone with me, but only because of important phone calls that in the future I could regret not having answered to. It has happened in the past that some place needed a musician on the fly, because for example, whoever was going to play that day got sick or whatever, and they needed me to cover them last minute, and I really need those gigs. So in those cases, I think it is justified to be distracted, but these are exceptions. What should be completely out of the discussion are all the rest of the things. Of course, social media, messenger, texting, email, WhatsApp, and all that. There are some apps through which you can block notifications from all bothering non-important things. You can set up timings for those notifications to pop up, for example, every 3 or 4 hours, or less or more. In that way, you know that there will be no irrelevant stuff distracting you during work. Some say that the internet in the computer you use for work should be disconnected too. It is also great advice, and if you adopt it, it will be fantastic. I like having the internet on for immediate small solutions that will allow me to continue doing my arrangements without having to completely get out of the working flow. For example, if I need to find out about a shortcut or some particular function in my editing program and stuff like that, I can find a tutorial and keep going. But you should never use it for checking out your social media, not even if you are inside your studio doing a break. In fact, any other thing that is not strictly related to the music production tasks that you are carrying out inside your studio shouldn't bring you to the need of dipping your nose into something else. Do check out whatever you want, but always outside your studio. Get used to it. When you need a break, go for a coffee to the kitchen or to your living room. Take your time and check out the news and whatever you want for some few minutes. Think it this way. It is impossible that a lot of very relevant things happened all the time so that you instantly and immediately need to check out your phone without time having passed for at least 2 hours. The most probably thing here is that you will not miss anything really important that is not possible to check within a 2-hour delay space of time. Make your place the nicest place you can imagine, a place that you love being in. If you are into color lighting, do that. Feel cool, feel like a god or a goddess. It's your aircraft, your own ship, your kingdom. Treat your space acoustically. Crazy! If you are in an apartment or a semi-detached house, put whatever resources and effort that would take to make your studio as silent as possible, not only for getting better results in your takes, but also because no noises from the outside world, neighbors, cars, etc. should get into your studio. And also, no noise from your studio should bother your neighbors or flatmates. You will live unconcerned, and that will favor your workflow. Get rid of things or objects that you don't really need and even you don't really like lots. Maybe you built your space kind of temporarily, so you didn't really bother to take down that picture, that plant, that mirror, those curtains that don't inspire you. Leave only the things that make you feel great. Have an agenda next to you, either a paper one or something like Trello. If you have a paper notebook, it should be very handy, just an arm movement away. Oftentimes, we have a wrong subjective viewpoint of what has really happened in the short-term past in our lives. We only remember few things and tend to forget others. Make a list of all the things that you have done in the last 24 hours that have nothing to do with any aspects of the music production world, and also during the past 7 days. You will be surprised. Maybe you say, oh, yesterday I started to write down the chords from a new song, and before yesterday I was trying to learn techniques that will help me to mix an old song. This morning I was looking for information about how to get more gigs, and after that I was practicing a little bit of piano. It sounds like a lot, doesn't it? And you feel like a hero thinking about how many things you've done. Try counting all the other things instead. Make a list of the stuff you spend time on that has no relation at all with any aspects of the music production world. There are many things that are actually great, even though they are not directly related to music, but they are great. You know, spending time with people, watching a nice movie, going for a walk, reading, doing domestic tasks which need to be done, or resting, which is great. I love sleeping, for example. But what else did you do? Try to remember, go through the whole day, try to track your movements during last week, day by day, and start writing down a list of things that were not productive at all. For example, from the amount of time you spend watching videos on YouTube, how many videos weren't really planned to be watched? And how much time you spent watching secondary videos suggested by the algorithm that were absolutely irrelevant for you? When we are distracted with things like that, we don't realize that those minutes or hours are really time passing by. It is our time dispelling forever. It sounds catastrophic, and it is not really. It's alright spending time doing really nothing productive, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be aware of it. Make the exercise of having a notion about the time that we spend doing things that we will forget forever the next day. As I said, sometimes we have a distorted viewpoint of what we really do. Then there is the other situation. Maybe you think you are doing nothing at all, but actually you were, for example, thinking. Yes, thinking. Thinking is great. So you see, the term doing nothing is relative. Doing apparently nothing might be actually doing something. And being very active in some cases might be irrelevant in all senses. The truth and the real point in this section of my speech is that doing really nothing productive is actually a conscious decision. Well, you'd say, how can I be conscious about something that I am not conscious about? Listen, not having the intention of being conscious about what you're doing makes that you, by not being conscious, have already actually made a decision about it. Notice, obsession is way more attractive to the brain than the success that it is supposed to bring us to. Listen again. Obsession is way more attractive to the brain than the success that it is supposed to bring us to. So, your vehicle races at full speed for a while and then runs out of gas. Then after that, out of the blue, the engine boils with fire, and suddenly, for no reason at all, it becomes a frosted, frozen freezer. You push your car, but it does not move. This is the only car I have, so let's think. The car is not death, otherwise it couldn't start working again every some time. But it does want to cool down when it is fire burning its pit. Maybe the thing would be not to make it get to that burning point, so that the engine would be stable forever. Easy, right? Well, no. That situation works well in a 2D environment, but this is at least a 3D world. There are other streets, other cars, other paths, other ends of roads. Only each of them brings you to a different place. Let's make this short. Obsession will block you from seeing any other single road except the one you want your car to be stable on. By the way, those places are not always the ones that you were hoping you would be brought to. Let's zoom in a little bit more. You can say, today I am recording the bass. Would you be able to answer why you are recording the bass and not writing the lyrics yet not finished, for example? Is it because recording the bass is the easiest part of the process, or is it because recording the bass is what you enjoy the most? Is it a strategy so that when you record your guitar you can feel better the harmony? Or is it just because you are tired today? You are struggling to continue and you need to feel that you did something at least. It might seem too strict to put attention to these things, but they help. They help having a better picture of where exactly you are stepping on. Therefore, it will be easier to plan and schedule the next steps ahead. And that will make you work more fluent and productive. Staying healthy plays a big role in productivity. Your brain and your heart have to be alive and working well. Not being productive could lead to sense or feel that there is no progress, and as tragic as it may sound, a lack of progress could lead to depressing yourself. And it's sort of a circle. If you're not productive for a while, the sensation of not having experienced progress at all makes that you lose interest and strength to keep yourself productive doing stuff that goes nowhere. There might be a couple of reasons why sometimes you find yourself immersed in such mental state. Maybe your thoughts are too busy, or maybe you are comparing yourself to others. Stop doing stuff, stop everything, and do this. Observe which elements of your thoughts are objectively relevant for work and creativity. If it helps, make a list. Write it down on paper. By recognizing and discriminating these hidden thoughts, you are going to be able to manage them better. and compete only with yourself. Re-evaluate where you are putting your energy, how and why. It's not only about wasting your time, but also wasting energy, especially if you are putting energy in things that go nowhere. For example, it is necessary and good to be aware of what is going on around the world. It's great to have our own opinions in different aspects of society, politics, and so on. But if you notice that you are ended up reading or watching to the same news more than 3 times, it means that you are watching too much. Also, try not to get involved in political arguments in social media. If you want to discuss politics, do it with people that will not make you waste your time and energy for nothing. Respect what you do. Allow yourself to say no to other people. Value your time. What you're pursuing in the surface might sound like one of these examples or similar. I want to be a singer, songwriter, and make a living with my music so that I can continue to do more and more songs. I want to make people happy. I want to be a professional jazz player. I want to work as a professional arranger, producer. I want to be a YouTuber, an influencer. I want to be famous. I want to do lots of money with music. I want to be a star. A little bit deeper, different forms of truth arise. I want to be admired. I want to be respected. I want people to love me. These are intrinsic human needs, wishes and desires that every one of us have, and it is totally normal. Now, ask yourself this. If I knew I would not receive recognition, admiration, respect and love, would I still want to do what I'm trying to do? Doing stuff only to be accepted could lead you to the following improcessant, non-productive equation. I'll try to do what I perceive it is the reason why people will admire my music and me. Maybe our perception of the things that we think people would like to listen from us is absolutely wrong. And besides, in the end, I will not be doing what I would like to do, which may be the thing that actually would lead me to be recognized paradoxically. The main pursuit in your music career should be always to continue improving, learning, progressing, and enjoying. Dream realistically. Have doable things, expectations. Control only what you can control. Trying to perfect something for an excessive amount of time could not be so productive right now. What is your range of skills? Be sincere with it, realistic. Give yourself permission to relax. Take time for brainstorming. Don't start working without a plan. Be inspired by other people that are already what you would like to be in the future. Understand that perspective is perceived different at different times and situations. Different environments may distort our capacity to judge how high or low our productivity performance is. If you want to mix your own stuff, learn how to do it well. Do courses, take lessons, watch tutorials, etc. That will make your work more dynamic, less frustrating, and you will not end up lacking enthusiasm in the most important thing, which is doing music. Don't let your lack of equipment discourage you from keep doing lots of amazing things. Do more. One day you will have the best equipment that exists. Your spaceship might be small, but it's yours and it's the best. Being able to accept that there are things you don't understand makes the difference between having or not a real perspective at all. Disconnect from music from time to time. It will be more productive. Productivity has a limit. Burnout will block you. It is important to take water every some time. Have a bottle of water next to you all the time. Treat yourself well. The amount of time that you spend doing stuff that you think is productive is not as important as to have a very clear picture of what you are exactly doing. And I don't mean, for example, I am working in a new song. We certainly have in mind a clear notion of where the ending point is, but are we walking through concrete sub-stages or just flying more or less straight towards the goal? We need to get to know ourselves very well, not only to be aware of our limits, but we must also be absolutely honest, recognizing which are the real reasons driving us to the goals we are trying to achieve. Yeah. Everybody has a different life background, so be creative, finding your own rules. Thanks very much. See you in the next one. Percussion. Acoustic instruments, MIDI sounds, loops. Is there an ultimate better way to record percussion? Is style the most important parameter, framework? How effective it is to mix the human touch with a quantized MIDI session? We will talk about that and more in a second. As always, and once again, recording percussion requires not only groove, knowledge of styles and technical abilities, but also a lot of imagination and creativity. Also something that I could describe as fine-tuning the ability to get to the concise and brief synthesis of a singular pattern for each rhythm that you need to record. We will keep close to an approach to acoustic percussion, human performance. Even though in certain contexts may not be the most important thing of all, it is probably the most difficult thing to do well if you're not a professional drummer or percussionist, as obviously it requires and involves physical skills and training. Does that mean that a non-professional percussionist cannot record acoustic percussion? Well, not necessarily. Creativity can take us to places we couldn't even imagine. We'll see. That's right, except that there has to be some kind of limit. Maybe not in terms of aesthetics or artistic taste, but in terms of when to stop, where to finish using our creativity. The little clip I used in the intro at the cinema is an experiment I did a few weeks ago. I went through my house collecting random sounds, and then I tried to build something with it. But because I had no plans at all, it was hard to find a direction. I started to think that creativity doesn't equal complete anarchy of decisions. Chaos is there around the corner, and there must be a limit for our project to be contained. So, where to stop? Is it intuition? Is it common sense? Clearly, throwing a bunch of stuff to the oven just like that results in a tasteless and undistinguishable cumulus of flavors. What was the thing? To continue building and adding sounds until I fixed it? Or was it to discriminate what to add or not, so that the ending result was perfectly done for the satisfaction of its purpose, which was accompanying this video game scene as it was a real soundtrack made with traditional sounds? Before going into any established traditional rhythm, let's use this single beat note as some sort of experimental blank canvas. We have nothing, no context, no variations, no syncope, no rhythm. Let's distort it a little bit. Now we have a pattern. Why? Let's keep going. Clearly, at some point this may have fallen into an involuntary miscalculation, probably due to being too enthusiastic. So when did that happen? When a potential nice pattern became an obsolete bunch of bangs? Well, since we didn't have any conventional or established reference. Let's start again. Only this time we're going to have in mind a conventional reference, a style that you know very well and can hear plainly in your mind. Imagine the entire band. You're playing there, you're not alone. Don't be afraid to simplify. Don't give too much importance to something that you wanted to fit in if it doesn't really work. Sometimes it is better to clean up the little things that make the whole thing dirty instead of just continuing adding. Fine-tuning the ability to get to the concise and brief synthesis of a singular pattern for each rhythm that you need to record. It sounds like a complex formulated statement. Basically, I was saying that if you want to add a new pattern to a given rhythm, it must be a meaningful one. I'll show you the percussion parts from an arrangement that I did for a drummer from the UK. This is actually a massive project with lots of tracks and instruments in it. But anyway, let's see what's the story with the percussion. This is what I got from this guy, a great drummer by the way, his name is Chris Guile. I thought that the sound should be very organic in a way, something like I don't really have many percussion instruments. I wish I had, but I don't. So what I had to do was to use my imagination and creativity. I did it before anyway sometimes. Let's see what we got here. Thermos. Sounds great. This is a little tambourine I have. Clapping, of course. The most natural, easy, cheap and effective percussion instrument. This is the other side of the thermos, played with the finger. I don't know the name of this in English. I think it's great air or something. Cup of tea. And the shaker, of course. So let's listen to each of the patterns, but in relation to the shaker. So the clappings. More or less similar to what drums do. This toc toc, the MIDI toc toc. Tick, 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 tick. One of the thermos thing. Ta, 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 ta. This thing is doing ta 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 ta. The cup ting 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 ting. There are two tambourines actually. Then there are some few tracks where I improvise. There are two MIDI tracks and an acoustic one. The MIDI tracks are not quantized. It's just messing around. I have another whole micro lesson talking about groove in general. I'll refer here though very quick to a small aspect of it, which is related to assemble many percussion instruments and multiple patterns at the same time. How is a nice groove built when each of the patterns are performed slightly inexact? Well, it works like this. As far as each of them is recorded with groove, it doesn't matter how imprecise all are. In the end, the result will be perfect, just like this circle becomes round and orbed, made of imperfect other circles. Of course, other instruments are doing patterns as well, but that would be subject for another review. Before going into the MIDI loops, let's talk about recording within a specific BPM. In the previous case, in the previous example, as I said, I got a track from a drummer which wasn't recorded with metronome. So everything that I recorded on the top was entirely live from the beginning till the end. And eventually corrected what it was needed, of course. If you are doing a track from scratch, it is almost essential that you first set up a BPM. Spend some time finding the right speed for your song. It's very important. It will allow you to loop your own performed tracks, but also it will give you the chance of adding a MIDI loop after the work is finished. If you are an arranger, producer, that's a great thing. Clients are amazed when you present the same song in two versions, with and without MIDI loops, as it sounds completely different. In my opinion, it is better to start recording without any loop first. This is the way I do it. This is a commission I've done a few months ago. Let's listen to a few bars first. The first thing I do after setting up the speed is to record a line the easiest way in which I can produce a nice groove. In my case, this is playing the rhythm with the guitar, muting the fretboard with my left hand, like this. I recorded two in this case, but notice that the loops I produced with them are not starting at the same point. That produces little variations in some places. The second easiest way for me to produce another group loop is clappings. If the song needs them, of course. The idea is to play the easiest first in order for the basic rhythm to be as solid as possible. Then it would be the cajon. There are two cajons in this case. One is looped and the other one is improvised. This is funny. It's supposed to be the footwork done by the flamenco dancer, something like this. This is how I do it. After all the acoustics are done, I start adding MIDI sounds. Same principle, a couple of loops done by me, and then a couple of improvised ones. This adds a little bit of highs and clarity to my acoustic loops. Let's put back the rest. Okay, so let's mess a bit with quantized MIDI loops, simple loops from Logic in this case. I never use only one. I try to mix 3 or 4 or more until I get to a sound that I like. There are no rules here, but this is an idea. I placed 2 kind of acoustic drums loops and then 2 MIDI electro beats sounds aside. The electro beats have deeper bass EQ. Instead, I cut the bass from the drums. Let's listen to each of them individually. With the beats. Here it is when we need some responsible criteria. This is all together with the acoustic percussion. Remember this African bass drum there. This will interfere with the bass of the electro beats, so it's better to mute it. What about the cajons, the footwork and everything that it is improvising? Let's clean it a little bit. Oh, that's better. Isn't it cleaner now? Listen with the cajons and everything. And without them. This bass there, out. The thing is, Without the acoustics, the human performance, this becomes kind of a cheap loop done for free download anywhere on the internet. I've said this in other lessons, but I will repeat it here because I think it's extremely important. Don't just listen to the music you like. Go check out other rhythms, music from different cultures. Listen to Indian music. There are incredible percussion instruments and players there. Listen to traditional African music. Listen to South American folk music. There are a lot of mixtures between 3/4 and 6/8. Rhythms like landó in Peru, joropo in Venezuela, chacarera in Argentina. Of course, listen to Cuban and Brazilian music a lot. Listen to Balkanic music, very important. All those 5, 7 and other different odd time signatures. And listen to the great Anglo and North American modern stuff, all the neo-soul, new jazz stuff. There are so many amazing musicians out there. My last statement is this. See you in the next one. Spanish guitar. Recording Spanish guitar can be challenging depending on the style of music we're trying to arrange or produce. It's a very versatile instrument and works very well in both rhythmical and free tempo or rubato music. However, we need some criteria regarding the context in which it works better or does not so good. I prepared 10 little examples in different styles using a very simple pop melody from a song called Empire State of Mind. I'll show you what approach I'd take and what decisions I'd make in each of those examples. Doing a solo guitar version of any song always works well, if what you want is an intimate, soulful touch. There are certain technical limitations, consequence of the nature of the instrument itself. However, a very simple melodic approach does produce, I think, a beautiful result. A two guitars version would be the equivalent of playing a small arrangement on the piano. It allows a more free approach to the accompaniment. Also, the melodic aspect would be more accessible and could be explored with certain ornaments. For this kind of soft finger style Spanish guitar, check out stuff like Dominic Miller. Or Pat Metheny covering Beatles. In the classical guitar repertoire, there are also many slow song-type pieces. For example, this one, Un Día de Noviembre, written by Leo Brouwer. The mix between Spanish guitar and a full string section works nicely. Playing only the melody on the guitar will definitely merge well with the sustained chords of the strings. You could consider those examples being performed with a kind of classical technique. What happens with other styles of music, more rhythmical ones? In flamenco music, for example, one can produce amazing grooves with techniques that distant very much from the classical guitar, from the point of view of both sound and technique. The melodies are played quite different as well. A clear reference to this type of playing would be Paco de Lucia improvising in songs like Entre Dos Aguas. The key for the bossa nova isn't the main guitar doing the melody, but rather the accompanying guitar doing this type of patterns. There are so many amazing Brazilian guitarists. Here is Romero Lubambo, just to mention one. For a more straightforward Latin sound, I'd approached the accompaniment as it was the tumbao on the piano, something like this. If you want a great reference for this kind of thing, try to follow the example of the greatest tres cubano players. Listen to Pancho Amat, for example. I'd put those three last examples into the same category. Funk music is a complete different story. First of all, using a pick is a good choice, both for playing the melody and the accompaniment. I wouldn't play big stuff like drums or brasses in this case, only a small setup like guitar, cajon and bass, that's all. The imperative reference for this are these guys.
Hey, what's that funky taste in your mama's marmalade? Let me tell you.
Gypsy jazz is also a very cool style for Spanish guitar. I'm not a jazz guitarist, but I made a very simple example anyway. If you need a real reference, go for one of the greatest, Virelli Lagren. All those previous examples have been produced acoustically. What about MIDI sounds and virtual instruments? Here's a chill-out version. I wouldn't know what to suggest here. Maybe the series from Café del Mar could be a nice reference to this kind of productions. Even house music has space for a nice Spanish guitar tone. It could be a very friendly little touch. So many other examples could be shown. Music from Africa, Balkanic rhythms, blues. All Latin America, for example, would need a separated chapter, as it would take lots to show there and explain how the rhythms are performed. I excluded styles that I'm not so familiar with and for which I personally should dig more into before leaving you examples and advices, like music from China, Japan, India, and so on. But I think the Spanish guitar would sound very well in those musical contexts too. Let's do a little recap. A solo guitar version of any song works always well if you want to produce a delicate vibe to certain context. You can add things like harmonics at some point, or add some contramelodies to the main voice. You could also reharmonize some parts. If you do a duo guitar version, you can ornament the melody better. At some point, you could reverse the textures, for example playing the chords in a higher range and the melody in a lower range. There's no secret to funk music, rather than just grooving it. String section would definitely work well, maybe playing the melody in a very simplistic way. Maybe also try to put an expression like you are in deep pain or sorrow or something. If you are going for a flamenco vibe, you need a different playing. These sort of rhythmic patterns are cool. For a bossa nova version, you need to learn a little bit of the bossa pattern. If you want a Latin sound, try to find a tumbao pattern for the accompaniment. The melody may work well in octaves, as the tres cubano has double strings in octaves. Gypsy jazz. I leave it to you to decide which is the best way to do it. For stuff like chill out, lounge, house, and things like this, just wear sunglasses. Alternative sounds. Merging virtual instruments with a very creative use to all sorts of non-traditional instruments. This is actually not about Foley sounds, like producing sound effects for movies and so on. This is rather a real and concrete appliance to a very professional and unique way of doing music. The possibilities are endless. Real instruments, the ones that we now take for granted as traditional instruments, are actually the establishment of the use of certain experimental sonorous objects.
For most of history, gut was the most common type of string material for guitars, lutes, harps. Is a type of string which is made from a natural fiber found in the walls of animal intestines.
The villagers extracted the dead crane's wing bone and carved it into a basic musical instrument.
One of Franklin's favorite inventions. Basically custom-blown wine glasses, and they're all nested inside of each other.
The objects themselves store secrets that we can only probe by investigating the object.
Maybe you see this as an Asian thing, like caveman stuff. Well, check out these guys.
This is me just lighting a bunch of matches in a bathroom.
If we were meant to be, we would have.
Okay. Now let's put that down 18 semitones, see how it sounds. Sounds like a groovy lion.
I'm plugging it and it's sending the sound to my throat. And when I'm singing, I'm actually not doing any sound.
It's been always about the search for satisfactory sounds to be applied to the music that people were having in their minds. There are certainly lots and lots of amazing virtual instruments, and that is super cool. I love them, and I want them all. I still think, however, that it is so much gratifying to get yourself to the right sound for your music by trying to find them yourself creatively. I made a cool track merging some acoustic instruments with some virtual sounds and also some very weird stuff, unorthodox stuff. Let's see what the result is. Every sound here wasn't planned at all. The idea was to build a simple and short piece where I would have to find sounds on the fly, either a virtual sound from Logic, either a prop recorded live with some effect applied to it, either some traditional instrument, perhaps recorded in a less traditional way. This, for example, sounds to me like a perfect marriage between a virtual sound and a crazy thing I found appropriate for it. I love this. I actually stole it from a guy that does Foley sounds for short films.
A heartbeat, and this is how it sounds in the film.
It adds a dirty, deep sound to the main beat. I also added another bit, leaving all trebles out. In total, I think it is a much powerful pattern than the original loop from Logic. Let's mute all effects. Exactly, no amp, just a mic in front of an unplugged electric guitar. You wouldn't believe how much better a cajon can sound adding stuff inside. Don't just settle for the usual sound, make it better. They usually come with these snare wires attached to the inside of the front face. Well, add some guitar strings to it, it will sound crazy. Thermos cup. It adds a sort of rounded, clean, high-pitched tone sound to any snare or cajon. It's not the first time I'm using it. Oh, thermos are great. Shaker, of course. What about this? It's also not the first time I'm using a sofa. Sofas sound amazing. This is a Spanish guitar. I played it muting the strings with my right hand. The unusual kind of thing is that I cropped the tail in every note. There are no sustained tails in those notes. I merged it with the wire-plugged MIDI sound. Slightly out of tune, they blend very well together. This sounds like a chain or something, but actually it's just a couple of books being shaped. Impossible to figure out what this is. It came very different from what it really is. What I did here is just to crop the attack of the sound. Making sound with my throat. Some strong delay, of course. Let's see quickly what MIDI sounds choices I've made. Sounds must amalgam very well. I think that the choices you make have to be decided as your body asks you for something. It's like you feel something is incomplete and you know that an extra sound will unlock the mystery. So take time to serve that purpose well. Nobody dies if you spend a long period of time searching for this sort of stuff. The other side of the coin might also be pointed out, and this is don't overload every sound. You'll get confused and maybe you won't be able to find out where the diversion was. Where was it that you were close enough and when you started ruining it all? Acoustic guitars are always good, doing ostinatos and stuff like that. This one wasn't blending well with the rest of the instruments, so it's muted in the final version. You see, the possibilities are endless. I guess the point in this lesson is to encourage you to start thinking outside the box. Not only as a funny thing to do, which is, I can guarantee you that you'll have lots of fun trying different things and producing new sounds, but also because it will make your music very distinctive, original, different from everything that has ever been created.
First of all, thank you very much for being part of this course. I hope you enjoyed it, but above all that, after seeing it, your desire or at least curiosity to fix and produce music has awakened even more, whether you delve into trying things with your own songs or do it professionally for other musicians. Thank you for watching it. In the introduction of this course, I talked about creativity and versatility, concepts to which, in my opinion, we should emphasize in a quasi-strategic sense, if you will. I'm not saying you are not already versatile, nor am I saying you don't have creativity. In fact, if you are a musician, you are probably already a very creative person, and surely a large number of the people who have bought this course even possess both qualities intrinsically and to a greater degree than me even. My contribution, the concept I will try to explain, can be very useful to you, is the following. What is versatility in art, and more specifically in music? Knowing how to play multiple instruments, being familiar with many styles, working as a professional in various categories like working as an arranger, while also giving concerts, going on tours, composing their own music, and teaching in a school or privately. Certainly, yes, that is an individual with a wide range of skills. However, he possesses expertise not only in plumbing, but also in carpentry, mechanics, and house painting, all simultaneously. Like a working mother, she juggles office work, childcare, and her passions for literature, teaching, and exotic plants. What does that have to do with creativity exactly? Very good. Creativity without versatility will not make you create artistic works, no matter how creative you are. Lack of creativity hinders versatility, regardless of one's level of versatility, the amount of valuable information incorporated, and the enjoyment of others' past work. Being a versatile artist requires both versatility and creativity. How does this connect with fixing? That is the purpose of this course. My thesis on this matter then is as follows. Being creative and versatile at the same time is a matter of attitude. No one is creative and versatile if they don't strive for it, in any field, not just in music. And that's what I was referring to in the introduction when I talked about setting your mind around these two instances, creativity and versatility. Is it only in music? No, it applies to every single thing we do. It's a matter of attitude. Thank you for being a part of this course. Good luck. Goodbye.